There's something different in the air in Foxborough today. A rival's mistake opened an unexpected window. A veteran who knows exactly where he belongs could change the board. An underrated piece just lit a spark, and a tweak in the offensive plan promises immediate consequences. None of it makes sense, though, without the detail that froze the locker room for a few minutes and might unlock Sunday. Who's going to grab responsibility when the clock tightens? Who's going to silence the loudest beach in the NFL? You won't believe what we've got today. So sit down, hit that like button, and let's jump straight into the news. Now imagine supercharging all of that with a veteran weapon who still creates panic in one-on-ones. Jadeveon Clowney visited the Cowboys, walked out without a deal, and remains on the market. Dallas, fresh off the earthquake of trading Micah Parsons, flirted but didn't close, and when a target of that caliber leaves the building without a contract, it opens a competitive window for whoever has a clear plan, snaps to offer, and cap space. The Patriots have all three. It's no secret that New England currently leads the league in cap space and can structure an intelligent deal with incentives tied to snaps and production without boxing themselves in for 2026. Clowney is coming off 2 seasons totaling 15 sacks and 30 tackles for loss. Production that, alongside Harold Landry, would force offenses to rethink third-down protection rules. The connection matters more than the dollar signs. Mike Vrabel knows Clowney from their Houston days, tailored roles to unlock his multiplicity, and was a stated reason the defender chose Tennessee in the past. In Foxborough, the fit would be immediate. Landry drawing the slide, Clowney punishing the opposite tackle, and the duo forcing quarterbacks to speed up reads under 2.5 seconds. Add Christian Barmore and Milton Williams collapsing the pocket inside, and you get a funnel that produces mistakes, fumbles, and tipped ball interceptions. With the offense still finding cohesion around Drake May, that's the shortest road to short-term wins. Of course, there are risks. Clowney has had stretches of inconsistency and needs a clearly defined role to keep his motor roaring snap to snap. But under Vrabel, the script is usually straightforward. Defined responsibility, varied alignments, and public accountability for execution. The locker room buys in when the math works on the field, and the fan base has felt firsthand what an aggressive defense can do to the weekly narrative. If the front office pushes the button now, they can turn a good feeling into a trend before October. And that wasn't even the most surprising part of the day. The loss to the Raiders didn't just bring frustration, it unleashed a wave of overreactions, as if the season had ended in week 1. Inside that storm of takes, though, a few concerns are legitimate. The secondary without Christian Gonzalez, and especially the disappearance of the run game. That strikes at the core of any Patriots fan who knows this team's DNA. The roster has depth, it has distinct skill sets, and expectations were that Josh McDaniels would balance the offense to take pressure off Drake May. Instead, we saw an almost complete abandonment of the run. Trevion Henderson, so impressive in the preseason, barely appeared. Ramondre Stevenson, who should be a pillar, was scarcely featured. 13 total carries for 45 yards. It's like the offense cut off one leg and tried to sprint with the other. When the media pressed for answers, McDaniels owned the mistake. Rare in this league. He promised to reevaluate, hinted that the plan wasn't followed as designed, and that reopened hope among fans that things will look different against Miami. Because if there's a tried and true way to take weight off a young quarterback, it's with an active, creative backfield. Henderson has the burst for explosive plays, Stevenson can control the clock and wear down defenses, and Antonio Gibson can appear in specific packages that stress the edges and the flats. Not to mention the passing game usage, which didn't show up against Las Vegas and could have turned simple checkdowns into steady gains. That failure of execution sparks a real debate. Was it play sheet stubbornness or a defensive look that forced the adjustment? The bottom line for fans is obvious. Leaving that much talent on the bench is squandering what could be the foundation for flipping the weekly narrative. It's too early for despair, but too late to repeat the same mistake. The next game against the Dolphins can be the turning point that proves the staff truly heard the message. Because if this offense doesn't find an identity built on running the ball, the pressure on May will skyrocket, and every snap will feel like a trial. And that still wasn't the most unsettling detail of the week. Carlin Davis arrived dreaming of forming a lockdown duo with Christian Gonzalez, but that plan will have to wait. Gonzalez still hasn't returned from a hamstring issue, and without him, the responsibility on the veteran's shoulders grows heavier. Davis made his debut against the Raiders with 4 tackles and 2 pass breakups, one of them leading to an interception. Not bad, but in his own words, he wants more. He needs to prove to the fans and the locker room that he can be a pillar. The challenge now is massive. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in Miami without your elite partner. That demands hyper-focused eyes, discipline on every route, and perfect communication with Alex Austin and Marcus Jones. The secondary can't repeat what happened in Las Vegas when 8 passes of 20-plus yards were completed. That kind of breakdown costs games. Davis said he doesn't feel extra pressure, that his mindset is do your job regardless of who's next to you. The truth is he needs to be more than solid. He needs to be the player who chops up the rhythm of quick strike offenses, because Gonzalez's absence changes the defensive math. Every big play he prevents against Miami will be worth its weight in gold. The fan base is already locked in, split between praising his competitive edge and worrying about depth. The mood is pure expectation, and Davis knows every snap is a chance to write his story in New England. If Gonzalez returns healthy in the coming weeks, this duo can become one of the most feared in the AFC. Until then, Davis carries the responsibility of keeping the defense upright in critical moments. And while we're absorbing all that pressure on the secondary, a Week 2 game rarely carries a life or death label, but for the Patriots, this trip to Miami already wears that tag. The early schedule was supposed to give a young team some runway, but losing to the Raiders at home triggered alarms everywhere. Leaving South Beach at Eero 2, with Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers headed to Foxborough next, would border on disastrous for Mike Rabel and company. And it's not just New England feeling the heat. The Dolphins are stinging after getting carved up by Daniel Jones and the Colts, to the point where franchise legends like Larry Sonka called the performance unacceptable. That means Sunday becomes a survival war. Drake May needs to show he learned from the critical mistake against Las Vegas. The team can't waste a Miami pass defense that's vulnerable and a Tyreek Hill who talks more than he produces when the temperature rises. The drought at Hard Rock Stadium since 2019 hangs over everything, but there hasn't been a clearer chance to break the spell. The defense must be disciplined against Hill and Waddle, and the offense has to prove the millions invested this offseason weren't wasted. Nobody's asking May to be Tom Brady, but they are asking him to be calm, secure, and efficient. The problem is the desperation on the other sideline is just as real. Mike McDaniel can feel the seat warming, and the Dolphins will play as if it's an elimination game. That collision of urgency promises tension on every snap. If New England slips, the rebuild narrative turns into doubt. If they win, it's proof that it's still way too early to count this group out. And that's exactly where the spark lives that can change the entire season. So here it is, a window on the market to turbocharge the rush, a coaching mea culpa that could redraw the call sheet, a veteran in the secondary taking the heat while he waits for his partner, and a showdown in Miami that feels like a true hinge point. If the defense speeds up the opponent's clock and the offense embraces the ground game, the tide can turn now. If they stumble, the conversation changes fast. Who do you want getting more snaps? Is Clowney worth the bet? Does Henderson deserve 15+ touches? Drop your takes, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's live this week together. Foxborough breathes decision time.